Greetings. Aristotle of Stagira. At your service, though, if you're expecting a pristine marble statue of a philosopher, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Let me tell you, the real me has rather small eyes, spindly legs that my enemies love to mock, and a voice that, as my contemporaries unkindly noted, had a bit of a lisp. But I made up for it with impeccable fashion sense, multiple rings, perfectly trimmed hair, and enough olive oil baths to make a merchant weep with envy. Yes, I was the ancient world's best-dressed thinker, and I refuse to apologize for it. I was born in 384 BC in Stagira, a small coastal town in Macedon, to a family of considerable means. My father Nicomachus served as physician to King Amintas of Macedon. Growing up around a doctor's practice meant I was dissecting curiosity, along with everything else. While other children played with toys, I was probably poking at dead animals and asking entirely too many questions. My poor father must have wondered what he'd unleashed. At 17, I was packed off to Athens to join Plato's academy. Now, Plato, brilliant man, absolutely brilliant, the finest mind of his generation. But here's the thing about Plato. He loved his forms. You know, the perfect, eternal ideas that exist somewhere in the heavens, while everything down here is just a pale imitation. I spent 20 years listening to this 20 years. And after all that, I thought to myself, Master, I love you, but I love the truth more. The old man was not amused. He called me the mind of the school one day and probably wanted to strangle me the next. We argued constantly. He once complained to my father that I needed to be reined in, that I was too wild, too independent. Can you imagine? Me? Wild? I simply believe that if you're going to study the world, you should actually, look at it, touch it, dissect it, count its teeth. Speaking of which, I may have once claimed that men have more teeth than women. I was wrong. Don't write that down. When Plato finally passed away in 347 BC, may the gods rest his eternal soul, I left Athens. The academy had taken a mathematical turn that I found rather tedious, so I packed my belongings and my many rings and set off for adventures in Asia Minor. I married the lovely Pythias, niece of my friend Hermias, and we had a daughter. Then Pythias died, and I later found companionship with Herpulus, who gave me a son, Nicomachus. Life, as I would later write, is a series of changes, and believe me, I experienced plenty. Then came the opportunity that would define much of my later reputation. King Philip of Macedon invited me to tutor his 13-year-old son, Alexander. Yes, that Alexander. The one who would go on to conquer half the known world. Let me tell you about young Alexander, headstrong, brilliant, and utterly convinced he was destined for greatness. I spent 3 years teaching him ethics, politics, philosophy, and science. I tried to instill in him the importance of moderation, of justice, of ruling with wisdom rather than brute force. Did he listen? Well, he conquered Persia, Egypt, and India. So make of that what you will. He did, however, send me specimens from his campaigns, animals, plants, all sorts of exotic creatures for my research. At least, he remembered his old teacher. He also wrote to me once, asking me not to publish the esoteric teachings I'd shared with him because he feared losing his competitive advantage. The boy wanted to be the only one who knew the really good stuff. I assured him I'd keep the secret safe. Whether I actually did is a matter of historical debate. In 335 BC, I returned to Athens and founded my own school, the Lyceum. I named it after the nearby temple of Apollo Lysias, but the students soon gave us another name, the Peripatetics, or Walkers. And why? Because I refused to sit still like some statue in a temple. I taught while walking. We'd stroll through the shaded groves, discussing philosophy, politics, and whether the squid reproduces the way I thought it did. Spoiler, I was surprisingly accurate on that one. I established rules for the Lyceum: simple meals, regular routines, and a monthly symposium, which is a fancy Greek word for drinking party with intellectual conversation. The students governed themselves, electing a new supervisor every 10 days. It was a lively place. We had a library, a museum, and enough animal specimens to make a modern naturalist jealous. One of my favorite teaching moments involved a lesson on substance. I was in the classroom, gesturing at tables, chairs, walls, and I realized I was running out of examples. So I threw my hands up and said, "Come on, let's go outside." We walked to the garden, and I pointed to a plane tree. "The leaves," I said, "are the substance. The greenness? That's an attribute. It exists in the leaves, not apart from them. Come winter, the leaves turn yellow, the substance remains, the attribute changes." The students scattered into the groves, finding flowers and leaves to test the principle themselves. I watched them, delighted. "I think we should do this more often," I announced. And we did. From that day forward, the Lyceum's classrooms were the sky, the trees, and the winding paths of Athens. Now, I should mention I wasn't always serious. I had a sense of humor, despite what my stern marble busts might suggest. The secret to humor, I always said, is surprise. One day, I was walking along the beach, wrestling with some philosophical problem, when I noticed a man scooping seawater with a ladle and pouring it into a small hole he'd dug in the sand. I watched him, baffled. He was utterly absorbed, making trip after trip to the sea. Finally, I couldn't contain myself. "Forgive me," I said. "But what in Hades are you doing?" "I'm going to fill this hole with the entire ocean," he replied, completely serious. I laughed. I actually laughed. "You fool," I said. "That's impossible. The ocean is vast, your hole is tiny, and you have a ladle. Go home and rest." The man laughed even harder than I did. "Yes," he said. "I'll go now because my work is done." I stood there, my mouth hanging open, and then I laughed again, this time at myself. The man had just given me a lesson in perspective, in the absurdity of human striving, in the difference between appearance and reality. And he'd done it with a ladle. I love that story. I tell it to my students whenever they get too full of themselves. Speaking of students, they asked me all sorts of questions. One asked, why jealous people are always so miserable. I said, because they suffer not only from their own failures, but from everyone else's successes. Another asked why I disagreed with Plato so openly. I love my teacher, I said, but I love the truth more. And I meant it, every word, but life has a way of turning on you. In 323 BC, Alexander died suddenly in Babylon. The news reached Athens, and the anti-Macedonian sentiment that had been simmering for years exploded. My enemies and I had accumulated a few over the years accused me of impiety, of disrespecting the gods, the same charge that had killed Socrates. My students urged me to stay, to face the charges, to make a stand. I thought about Socrates. I thought about how he drank the hemlock, how he chose death over compromise. And I thought, I am not Socrates. I am an old man with a bad stomach, and I have more books to write. So I fled to Chalcis, on the island of Euboea. I will not let Athens sin twice against philosophy, I supposedly said. I spent my final months in exile, continuing my work, watching the tides of the Euripus Strait, which, I confess, I could never quite explain to my satisfaction. Some say I died of a stomach ailment, my constitution worn down by years of study and late nights. Others say I died of grief or frustration. Me? I say I died doing what I loved, thinking, observing, and probably complaining about the food. 62 years. I wrote about everything. logic, physics, biology, ethics, politics, poetry, rhetoric. I classified 540 species of animals. I invented the syllogism. I taught a king. I walked 1,000 miles through the gardens of Athens, arguing with anyone who would listen. I was vain. I was occasionally wrong. I was relentlessly curious. And I never met a question I didn't want to answer. If there's one thing I want you to remember about me, it's this. Don't take yourself too seriously. The universe is vast. Your understanding is small. And somewhere, a man with a ladle is proving you wrong. Laugh at yourself. Question everything, including your teachers. And for the love of Zeus, wear decent clothes. You never know when someone might paint your portrait. This has been Aristotle of Stagira, philosopher, biologist, fashion icon, and proud owner of very small eyes. Thank you for listening. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a squid to dissect.